Happy Thursday. Thank you for tuning in for another Thirsty Thursday from the Maryland Distillers Guild. I'm joined today by Jaime Windon of LYON Rum. I apologize for any background noise. I'm out at the beautiful Sugarloaf Mountain Winery today. We have another event from Maryland Wineries Association that we're working on, but I wanted to take the time to make sure that I got a chance to chat with Jaime. We're going to talk all about LYON Rum. We're going to talk all about the wonderful distillery they have there in St. Michael's and hear about what they've got going on with their response to handling business in the era of COVID. As most of you know, distilleries throughout the state are open for carry-out business and for retail sales at local retailers. Some distilleries may be open for you to come and join them at their locations. So please tune in and check in with your favorite local distilleries to find out what they have going on. If you have any specific questions, check marylandspirits.org. And we're going to jump right to it. Jaime, how are you this afternoon?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. This has been a long time coming. Since we started this, I've been trying to get you on, but you've had a lot of stuff happening in the last few months, huh?
Yeah, it's been a little busy. Plus, admittedly, I kind of dodged the internet stuff. So you finally pinned me down 15 weeks later.
Hey, it was worth the wait. I am looking forward to this, and I'm hoping that everybody who's viewing this afternoon has a great time with us. So why don't we just start this off right away? What's going on with LYON Rum? Give us your background and tell us about the recent kind of changes to the business.
Yeah. So this is our 7th year in business. So lucky year number 7. What could possibly go wrong? Little hiccup here we have in our second quarter. But we are a rum distillery. We have been making what we like to call remarkable American rum here in St. Michael's for the last 7 years. And so that has not changed. We hit a little pause button at the end of March when we started shifting over to hand sanitizer production. But a few weeks after dedicating ourselves to that, we were back distilling rum, which is what we do pretty much 7 days a week here. And so we have been just as busy as we could imagine. We don't really do well when we're not busy. So we've managed to fill our schedule with all sorts of other things in the last few months, even though we're not kind of business as usual, if you will. So we've been making spirits, we've been making sanitizer, we've been doing a ton of farmers markets, a ton of new farmers markets, and of course running around the state doing home deliveries. So it's been an interesting time for sure.
Sorry for the little glitch there. I'm trying to get the screens to line up the right way.
We're losing.
So you are not alone. Yeah. You are not alone in changing your focus for a couple of weeks on the hand sanitizer thing. I think that inside the industry, we're all aware of how much need and demand there was from frontline workers and first responders and all of that for these products, and they were nowhere to be found. What did it take to be able to answer that demand? What did you have to do at the distillery to be able to begin to manufacture hand sanitizer, and what did it take regulation-wise to be able to help with that?
Well, it took a lot of help on the federal level. So although we make alcohol, we weren't easily able to just go ahead and make sanitizer alcohol without FDA approval. So once all of that was ironed out, which only took a few days, we kind of just switched and started making a very different type, alcohol for the outside, as I've been calling it. So it became, a huge part of our production, and just meant working nonstop because it was in such high demand. And then after a few weeks, as things leveled out, kind of getting back to normal. We still produce it, albeit in a much smaller capacity, so everyone who is local can find it, and we always have a good supply.
It's got to be very strange to be a distillery who now has to put things like "do not drink this" on your bottles when all you've been trying to do is get people to drink your spirits for years.
Well, that, and people are like, "Oh, does it taste good?" And you're like, "No, this is a very different product. Like, this is not. It's not going to.
It doesn't, and you don't want to try it.
It's incredibly functional.
So LYON is known primarily as a rum distillery. What about the business drew you to rum and starting a distillery that was going to manufacture rum here in Maryland?
Yeah, so it was just rum is such a fun, wide open spirit when it comes to really doing something differently and putting your spin on it while paying, appropriate homage to where that spirit came from and how it's developed over time. Rum just seemed like the obvious spirit to dive into as far as we were concerned. In the first couple of years, we also mashed whiskey. And while we enjoyed that, it's not my true love. Rum is absolutely what I want to focus on. So we decided about 4 years ago to deep dive into rum. And so to kind of do all things rum all the time. And so we always focused on distilling a really unique spirit as our base, and then constantly adding different versions and finishes to kind of, give every drinker a rum that they'll like, and a rum for all occasions, if you will. So I think that it's really fun when you're in a creative space to try your hand at a lot of different things. And there's many distilleries that work on all sorts of spirits, from vodka, gin, rum, whiskey, etc. And that's great. It's just not for me. I find passion in specializing and trying to slowly the process of becoming an expert in your area. So I think I'm most interested by distillers who focus on one thing and really focus on giving it all of their attention, all of their creativity, and really making that their work. And so as I grew my team, which is getting bigger and bigger, with every year. Before the pandemic, we had 15 employees. I have 3 distillers that work at LYON, and they all came on when we were transitioning to just rum. So they are all rum lovers as well. And so for us, it's this it's 2 things. It's one, trying to all become experts in that field and make rum our life's work, but also a beautiful constraint, so that any spirit we want to make, it's going to be based in rum. And so we think that makes all of our liqueurs and infusions so much more unique and interesting. But sometimes it can prove a challenge, especially someone who tells me that they don't like rum. And so when I pour them, say, our beautiful Curacao, and they say, oh, okay, well, what's this made from? And then I have to explain to them that it's a rum. It's tricky for people, but I also enjoy that because I like showing that a spirit isn't just one expression for the whole category, right? That I think we're seeing that with a lot of things, especially I would say new American gins is a really great example that spirit can be so much more than what people are used to traditionally. And so of course we've always been committed to doing that with rum.
I was muting as a tractor went rolling by. I didn't want to blow your eardrums out. I think that it's very interesting that we see this propensity for people to truly tie on to what their experience is with something before they try something new, if it's like. So people who may not enjoy rum probably don't have the experience of rums like you're making. I have a lot of experience seeing that from the beer industry. I don't like beer. Well, you may not like this beer, but have you tried this beer? And I have to say that I, as a consumer like anybody else, am guilty of those same biases. And I never felt like I would be a rum consumer. And the more that I work with our distilleries here in the state, the more I learn about what you guys are doing, I'm turning around and I've become somebody who can say, oh, I do enjoy rum. I enjoy rums with unique finishes. I tend to be a whiskey drinker, and I think that I appreciate that. But what I'm learning from you guys is just that there is a whole fantastic world of this product that I never would have looked at twice.
Exactly. I usually I start my greeting of people, it's hard because when you're in the tasting room, there are tons of large signs that say, drink more rum, and explain where our sugarcane comes from. It all comes from Louisiana. And so it's a big rum energy when you enter our tasting room. I'm not in the tasting room today. I'm on my back porch. Our tasting room, not only is it currently closed, but it's undergoing renovations. So it wouldn't have been a very fun space to be in. But when you walk in, it's incredibly tropical. And so it's hard to get away from knowing, you're set up to know that the rum is there. But when I'm offsite at an event or a market, I usually start by asking people, not if they like rum, but I ask them what they like to drink. And whatever they tell me, my response is usually that I have a rum for that. So, for someone like yourself, you're saying you like whiskey. And so what that tells me is that you don't want something that's too sweet. You don't want something that's layered in too much extraneous flavor, right? You enjoy the flavor of oak or other wood that has given the spirit some character. And you appreciate a strong, clear, clean spirit, right? That's kind of unadulterated, if you will. And I think most people, when they hear the word rum, they hear sweet and they hear spices, and they think of cocktails. And so you're someone that I would recommend for our Sailor's Reserve, which is a very dry, very unique rum. It's more in line with the taste of it, someone who likes an Irish whiskey or Scotch. Whereas our dark rum, which is our signature, is really great for someone who likes a rich, sippable bourbon. So it's fun. It's fun to ask people what they like. And if they don't really like spirits, I still am convinced that I have a rum for them. And so whether they drink sangria or they like craft beer, I usually have something that I can point them in the direction of. So I think that's important when you're making anything. I think chefs come up against this a lot. People come to food with biases. They haven't had something prepared maybe in a certain way, so they think they don't like that vegetable or that meat or whatever it might be. And so if you have someone who's truly good at their craft, I think they can highlight it in a way and really, change people's minds, which I think is something really fun that we have the opportunity to do. My background, although I've been in the spirits world for a very long time, I've been in hospitality since I was in high school, working with, with people and behind many a bar. Education is really key to me. And so the artistry and the education, and that's what we're delivering, but we're just delivering it in liquid form, as I like to say.
I always think that the aha moment for people when they realize that they do like something that they may have thought they wouldn't is the most rewarding part of all of this. You see somebody appreciate a craft or the artistry without having to be concerned with whether or not it's something they don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you've got a pretty good lineup of stuff to walk us through today. Do you want to jump into talking about kind of what you have there and what your brand represents?
Absolutely. So as I can't say enough, we love rum, and so we have made our white rum, I think, the absolute finest white rum you can drink. It is distilled from 100% Louisiana sugarcane. We use a hybrid of molasses and the first press of the sugarcane. So we get a couple of tractor trailer loads a year full of sugarcane, and when that cane comes to us, it's still damp with cane juice, and so that adds an extra dimension to the rum and to the fermentation that you don't always get from just a molasses-based rum. And so I enjoy all different varieties of rum, but that was the first thing that we settled on that would kind of make our rum stand out, that you would have these top notes of bright, grassy cane, followed by richer, softer molasses as you drink it. So we do that kind of hybrid fermentation as it is. We use a large pot still for our stripping run, and then we use a series of 5 smaller pot stills for our spirit run. So for people who don't really know a lot about the difference between column stills and pot stills, they can deliver very different flavors. The reason we use pot stills is because we believe that they are designed for honing all of that character that we want to leave in our spirit. So when you look at a bottle, a clear bottle of liquor, it's not uncommon to think that, oh, that's not going to taste like much, or that's the one that you have to mix. And that's not always the case, because, a fine whiskey starts as a really full-bodied white spirit as well. It just develops over time. And for us, a white rum shouldn't just be a slightly sweeter vodka that goes into cocktails. It should be something worth talking about on its own. So our white rum is phenomenal with just a little bit of lime juice, a splash of simple syrup in a classic daiquiri. It's fantastic in mojitos, so mojito season is upon us. And any fresh fruit, we really skew towards tart drinks for our white rum. We don't vary it with sweetness, and there's a softness to it, but there's no sweetness to our white rum. Another popular misconception, rum myth I like to bust, is there is no more sugar in a bottle of white rum than there is in a bottle of vodka or any other clear spirit. All the sugar, if we're doing our job right, is consumed during fermentation, and you're left with a very pure spirit at the outset after distilling. Any sugars are added at the back end So you can rest assured that you don't start as too sweet with a rum. Sometimes white rums are aged, especially in some Caribbean countries. Our white rum is unaged. It is decidedly a young American rum. That's the category that we are digging into. It's not all that common. When you see a white rum that is aged, it's aged in barrels and charcoal back to clear. So it's a little tricky. You would think that anything that's clear is unaged, but that's not always the case with rum. But for us, it's a very raw, bright spirit in the best possible way. So we love that. That is definitely my summertime favorite. And a classic daiquiri is just the most refreshing thing you can drink when done right. You have to have fresh lime juice though, and not too much sugar. But that said, our dark rum is by and far our most popular rum. We have done over 240 batches of our dark rum since we started. Our dark rum is essentially the same spirit as our white, except it has a touch of homemade smoked caramel that we finish it with at the end. And then we let it rest, but instead of letting it rest or age in barrels, we rest it in stainless steel tanks. And it just starts to mellow out. Those sugars break down. It gets a nice, rich kind of butterscotch nose. So in contrast to the white, which smells grassy and really robust, almost like a tequila at first whiff, the dark rum just smells really rich and really full, but it's not too sweet. So they're both bottled at 90 proof, 45% alcohol. So it's just a touch higher, and that gives it some heat and some kind of integrity of the spirit to carry it through and not make them too watered down, you know. And my biggest complaint of any spirit is that it's boring, and I can say with absolute confidence that LYON Rums are not boring. They are boldly unapologetic and very flavorful, and so they make great drinks. I am currently drinking our dark rum with iced tea because it's delicious with iced tea. Then a little lemon. It goes in anything. So here on the shore, we love ginger cocktails. So we'll do a rum and ginger, you know, kind of a riff on the dark and stormy style cocktail. We call it Chesapeake Storm with ginger beer and the dark rum. But you can really do anything with this. And it's the type of rum that carries you from season to season, right? So you've got rum on the rocks or rum with hot cider in the fall and the winter. And then you've got golden daiquiris or dark and stormy style cocktails in the summer. So those are our flagships. We also do the Sailor's Reserve, which I mentioned that Jim, I thought you would like. I think I finished my bottle the other night, so I don't have a bottle here at home. But the Sailor's Reserve does not have any sweetness. It's the white rum rested in smaller bourbon barrels from our friend's distillery in New York. We use Kings County bourbon former barrels, and they're about 5 and 10 gallons in size. So what we do is we take the rum and we let it rest in there for about a year at a slightly lower proof than normal for barreling. We put it in about 115 proof, and after about a year, we pull it out, proof it to 100, and bottle it as a very light, delicate, really sippable spirit. So that one is, they're all just very different, and so that comprises the signature lineup. And then things get really wild from there. And so we couldn't have, you know, stayed in business this long without just trying to push the barriers of adding flavor into our white rum. So we have the liqueur line as well.
So I have never heard of charcoal filtering a spirit to remove color.
Yeah.
That's wild. You were saying the white rum, that's a process. Do you do that with the Sailor's Reserve, or do you leave it with the barrel color?
No, our Sailor's Reserve is a beautiful kind of pale straw color, in contrast to like the deep, rich ruby color of the dark rum. But yeah, no, that's kind of, people will often ask if our white rum is aged because that's popular, especially Puerto Rican rum, Puerto Rican white rum. That's one of the requirements in order to make rum in Puerto Rico, that you age it in a barrel for a certain amount of time.
You learn something new every day, and that's what this chat is all about.
Exactly. Do you want me to talk about the liqueurs?
Yeah, please. You've got a great lineup there. I've tried several of these, and I think that you've got some really cool stuff happening. So please tell everybody about them.
Awesome. Okay, so the very first liqueur that we did that I was the most excited about is our Rockin' Rum. This is my darling. This is a rum old fashioned in the bottle, right? So for years, I would tell people, for 3 years, in fact, I would tell people to take the dark rum and try making an old fashioned with it. And I was just shocked at how many people said they didn't have bitters at home or they didn't know how to make an old fashioned. So I thought, all right, if we're going to, encourage people to drink this and they're not going to be able to do it on their own, we're just going to have to do it for them. So Rock and Rye is a very famous, slightly obscure, but has a cult following, old style post-prohibition era cocktail that may have been invented in Baltimore, but for all intents and purposes, I think it was more the Atlantic City boardwalk. But after Prohibition, many bartenders would take bottles of rye whiskey and turn them into old fashions in a bottle. They would add rock candy, they would add cherries, orange peels, lemons, and bitters. And so it was something that people made all the time. And there's a few brands that have survived to this day on the market. And it was something I always really was fond of, a strong cocktail in a bottle. So I thought, well, why can't we do that with rum? We do everything with rum. I make margaritas with our white rum. Why not make a rock and rum? So when we bottled this, I don't think there was any other rock and rum in the world. I searched the archives, I searched the TTB database, and we're really excited about it. So it's our dark rum taken a few steps further. When we cook the sugar, we zest fresh orange peels into it. So we let those orange peels candy up. Then we dump Luxardo Italian cherries into that and let them set for a few days. And then we have kind of a house-made mix of cocktail bitters that we finish it with. Strain out all the fruit because I'm not a fan of the fruit floating around in my bottles. And we bottle at 84 proof. So it is still just as strong as a bottle of rum, but it's a delicious cocktail in a bottle. And at the end of the day, that's usually what I want to drink, just something over ice. And it's been very convenient in this recent time where all the cocktail bars were closed. Who would have ever imagined? And you could have a great cocktail at home with no work. So that was kind of my first, and that I think will always be my love. We have a coffee rum that is by and far the best coffee liqueur I've ever tried. Because I, as a rum maker, do not love vanilla as a very strong flavor. And a lot of coffee liqueurs rely on heavy notes of vanilla in order to balance them. And so while those are lovely products, it just wasn't for me. So kind of goes back to making something that you really like and finding kind of a hole in the flavor, that are out there on the market. And so for us, we use a locally roasted coffee from Rise Up Roasters that is about 9 miles down the road from us in Easton, Maryland. And we infuse that into the coffee rum, and then we finish it with chocolate shells. And the chocolate, the shell of the cacao bean, it gives it this wonderful, soft, dry mocha note that really balances it quite perfectly. So neither of these are anywhere near as sweet as you would assume when you hear the word liqueur. And so while they're in our liqueur line, it doesn't connote sweetness for us. All of the liqueurs, what differentiates them from the signature rums is that we're adding other botanicals and whole foods and fruits to them, right? So, and it's always all natural. So we don't use any extracts or flavorings. We're committed to using only the best raw ingredients in everything we do, which is especially evident in our ridiculously delicious Curacao. I think I'm a little backlit, so it's probably hard to see how great the color on this guy is. But the first question I usually get is, why is the Curacao not blue? And it's because we use orange peels, and oranges are orange. We kind of did our Curacao in homage or attribute to like an original Creole shrub that is a sugarcane based spirit. So we start with our white rum and we infuse it with bitter orange peel and sweet orange peel and all sorts of botanicals like cardamom and clove and a laundry list of others that give it this like nice island spice. But at the end of the day, it's just a super dynamic orange liqueur that happens to also be a rum that maybe kind of wants to be an Amaro. And so I find that I'm using this in everything. I use it as a substitute for Campari or Aperol. I put it in margaritas. I put it in punches. It's kind of my secret weapon. Truth be told, I don't love making cocktails. I like to drink them. And so no matter what I make, if I put a shot of Curacao in it, it is just absolutely remarkable. So this is a really, really good one. But it is summer, and I would be remiss if I didn't have a bottle of our toasted coconut here. That's actually what we were making at the distillery today. And our coconut rum is probably the best example of one, eating your words, because I have a tendency to say never and then something happens. So I'll tell you about that in a second. And also all natural ingredients, making a far different product than you would ever imagine. I mean, I don't think anyone has ever seen a bottle of coconut rum that's this color. So for us, when we opened our distillery, I think probably within the first couple of days, everyone said, "Oh, you make rum. Are you going to make a coconut rum?" And I always say, no, we're not going to make a coconut rum. We're a very serious rum distillery, and we want nothing to do with silly coconut rum. So fast forward a couple of years, and my lovely sister, who is our original rum runner and now is the vice president of wholesale division throughout Maryland, says, I think we need to do a coconut rum. Everything that we put out is delicious, and it's so much better than anything out there. And you know, people love coconut rum, but you know, we don't love coconut rum. How could we do a coconut rum that we love? And so I said, okay, let's, you know, go ahead and try one batch. So her and our head distiller, Brett Steigerwald, got together. They tried all sorts of recipes. They tried different coconut waters. They tried different styles of coconut. They did all of these things. They had a ton of R&D for a few months. And I thought it would be a one-time batch. We'll do one summer batch, and that's it. We'll see what happens. They made the most delicious coconut rum I've ever tried in my life. And it sold out in about 2 days. And so now we are on batch 13. This is the third summer of doing coconut rum. It's an absolute frenzy. Basically, they hand toast the coconut and then they infuse it into the rum. And the result is just a silky, rich, savory coconut rum. It tastes a lot like somebody squeezed an entire toasted coconut cake into the bottle. But not super sugary. So it's divine on its own. It's fantastic in a classic daiquiri with just fresh squeezed lime. So if you have this bottle and 3 or 4 limes, you're in business. Mix those together, shake it over ice, and you will not be disappointed. You'll be very happy indeed. So this is our favorite thing to drink in the summer. And we only do it from April to August. And due to the current pandemic, it almost didn't happen because we have a partnership with a restaurant here in town, and we use their very, very fancy oven that allows for perfection on the toasted coconut. But the chef there took it on as his project, and all of the summer batches are thanks to Chef Derek at Ava's. So we are very happy to have it. Came out a few weeks late, but it'll be here until the fall. And those are our delicious rums. We have a couple other things we do from time to time, depending on the season. You know, obviously distilling rum that comes from sugarcane from Louisiana is not exactly seasonal. We can do it anytime, but we do stick to the season when it comes to the coconut, just because it's when we want to drink it. And in the fall, we do a beautiful blackberry harvest rum where it's the only spirit that we use absolutely fresh picked fruits for. And there's a farm down the road from us in Cambridge called Emily's Produce, and they grow a ton of delightful blackberries, and we infuse those into our rum. And that's the rum that picks up when the coconut is gone and ushers us into the fall.
Well, I'm very happy that you were able to work with your friend, the chef, to get that fancy oven working for that rum.
Tell me about it. There may have been.
It's not often you'll get a chef saying no to help out with a great spirit, so that's nice. And you mentioned the color there. That color is beautiful.
I know, it's great.
It looks like it's it looks like it is a thicker spirit than some of the others. Is that the case?
No,
it has like some opacity to it.
Yeah, there's some opacity, but if you'll notice, it's still quite, I'm trying to see how I could do this. It's still quite thin. None of our liqueurs are viscous in any way. I think that, especially like people think about coffee liqueurs being really thick and syrupy, and ours are all really, I mean, the goal is to use a minimal amount of sugar just to balance the flavors. And so the coconut is the lightest we do. It's it clocks in at 60 proof, so it's definitely the lowest ABV. But that said, it's still not thick in any way. They're all really delicate and you know, with the mouthfeel, which we're proud of. That's important to us. I don't like things that are too thick as far as the spirit. I want it to be really thin and clean, and I think that comes mainly from, you can get all that flavor if you just use the best raw ingredients rather than having like a syrupy, thick liqueur.
Yeah, no need to have any chunks or anything floating around in your wonderfully distilled stuff.
I mean, to each their own, but
So, what does availability of your spirits look like throughout the state? You mentioned that you have some statewide wholesale. Are all of your spirits, is your whole portfolio available to wholesaler?
So we have great representation throughout the state. I think we have close to 200 retail outlets in Maryland that we distribute to. The only one that is not available is the coconut. Well, and then of course the blackberry as well. So the coconut and the blackberry are only available at the distillery. Mainly these sell out as quickly as we make them. So they're available here or now for home delivery, as well as at any farmers markets that we're at. But in addition to Maryland, we've started expanding. We've been in DC and Delaware and Connecticut for the last few years. We launched in Louisiana a couple of years ago. And just this year, we launched in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And during the pandemic, we launched in Florida. So we are now in 9 states and counting. So almost every state has everything. You can always find our dark rum anywhere. That is absolutely the flagship. So every store, every state has the dark rum. And then it's just up to each individual retailer, what they stock their shelves with. But yeah, the coconut is one that you have to search it out. So it's a good time that you can have home delivery, because we can take cases to, Hagerstown or Southern Maryland, and people don't have to drive to us.
I might have to request a stop in Frederickson.
We can do that.
What else is on the horizon for you in the next few months? I know that you made an announcement earlier in the year that you were sticking with all your sugarcane and molasses products were going to come from America. I know that was a local endeavor that you have. Talk to us a little bit about that and what that means for the future of the brand.
Sure. So I think that, there's not a lot of set rules for what makes, an American rum, but how can you really do that without American sugarcane, right? So for me, that's just the base, right? And we really love the farms that we work with, and the sugarcane that we get is absolutely phenomenal. So for us this year 7 was really about honing in and focusing on who we are and what we love the most about our company. So being devoted to American rum as a style and as a ethos that kind of guides us is very important. It's always been important to me that I know who I'm working with, and so that we're getting the best quality ingredients from the best people as well. So if we're going to align our product and our company and our brand with another, they have to be absolutely stellar. So that's really important to us. It comes back to, again, focusing on just making rum and making rum the best that we can. It also has a lot to do with things that we pursue. So at the beginning of this year, we really started, this was also our year of increasing our efforts into community engagement and sustainable philanthropy, which we've been able to start to do through some of our rums. We had a rum that for a few years we ran. It was a special edition black rum, and it was designed to be a very unique profile, and $5 from every bottle sold funded the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy that is here a few miles away from us, and that preserves and conserves land. And so that was really important to us. And so we were able to make a really large, significant contribution by doing what we do best, that is making and selling rum. And so we really want to work more on that. Something that's really exciting on the horizon for us is that for the last year, we have been working and consulting with a startup distillery on the island of Dominica. And our friends who run a nonprofit turtle conservation and hatchery program, we're looking for a way to bring tourism to Dominica and also create a product that could do the same thing, that could fund another effort that isn't, turtle conservation doesn't naturally generate a lot of funds. So they're on the island of Dominica. They have ample supplies of water and sugarcane, and they thought, why not make rum? And so myself and our head distiller, Brett, have been down to the island a few times and helped them determine the best sugarcane to use. No one has done rum production on the island in some time. So it was all about kind of taking what we know, but we're not rum agricole producers. We don't use raw sugarcane. So it was a learning curve for us as well. So we've been helping them out, donating our time and limited expertise in trying to get them up and started. So when they get up and running, we will be heavily involved in their project. It is their project, but we're trying to support them as much as possible. So in a few months, we are launching a very special rum that is going to support their efforts while they continue to fundraise and build their distillery. So I don't want to say much more about it because I don't like talking about things before they're ready, but look for a special edition rum where the dollars will be going to fund a really worthwhile venture on a beautiful island for some really fantastic people doing good work. So that's important to us. And during this time, it's more important to me than ever. I was just starting to kind of get our groove going where we could write checks instead of just donating our time and our energy to the organizations that we believe in. And so this year we identified a list of community partners that we wanted to support: our local community center, our YMCA, Habitat for Humanity, Talbot Mentors, anyone that's doing really good work in our community. We wanted to put our money where our hearts were. And so that's usually the first thing that gets cut when people experience economic downturns. And so for us, it's important that we stick with those commitments and that we also find new and creative ways to support other ventures in our community that need our support right now. Because, at the end of the day, we're only successful because we're in a really supportive community, and we want to make sure that we're giving back to those people and also creating a really healthy, equitable, dynamic area here on the Eastern Shore, for many years. And so that's something that we want to be a part of. So I think you'll see more of that from us. We're pretty good on our spirits. We're not really the new release, kind of nuts. Some people, that's what they live for, is different releases. I love what we do. We have, as I said, delicious spirits. Doesn't mean we won't do something new soon, but we did our launches. We know what we love. And now I think you're going to see our distillery doing more engagement with our community and kind of different ways that we can be involved, using our rum for making it, the world a little bit of a better place, if you will. So that's the idealist, that CEO here that runs the company is more, into the softer stuff sometimes.
Well, you are a very community-minded individual. I did not mention it at the beginning of the conversation, but Jaime is the president of the Maryland Distillers Guild, as well as the director of all great stuff and CEO over there at Windon Distilling and LYON Rum. So we're very fortunate to have her at the helm of the leadership for this association. And you do some work on the national level, also trying to help out, guide the spirits industry. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you see kind of overall for craft spirits and what's going to happen in the next few years, maybe as the industry matures a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I think we've seen a wonderful explosion of growth, right? We've seen it in Maryland, and what's happening in Maryland is happening all over the country. You go from 0 distilleries to 2 or 3 to 30, 40, 50, 100. I think in Maryland we're somewhere around the 35 mark for distilleries operating right now, which is fantastic. I mean, that's 10 times more than there were 5 years ago. That's wonderful. So as the distilleries grow, there's a lot of legislative changes that need to happen. And so it's been an absolute privilege to be part of the guild and to go and lobby and see things change. I mean, we passed farmers market legislation, 4 or 5 years ago? When we opened, we couldn't go to a farmers market. We couldn't go to an event. We could only do a very limited amount of activity on premise at our distillery. And now we're doing 10 farmers markets a week right now. That is what is keeping us going. It's what's keeping us out meeting people and, selling our spirits. And while I have, the luxury of keeping the tasting room closed a little bit longer, and figuring things out. So if we didn't have that ability, I'm not sure where we would be. And so we're seeing archaic laws be struck down all over the country, especially with things like direct shipping, and this fantastic home delivery ability we've had, which, to be quite honest, is as crazy as it is that we can deliver rum to your house. It's pretty crazy that we couldn't before this. I mean, you can get pretty much anything you want delivered, sometimes overnight, except for spirits in many areas. And I think that's even more confusing when you can get wine or beer delivered, but not spirits. So I think we're still fighting the good fight to have spirits accessible and easy to get to our consumers who want them. But the biggest issue that faces us and that kind of threatens the livelihood of the growing craft sector is the federal excise tax, which for many, many years has been set at an astronomical rate of $13.50 per proof gallon, which is a lot, which if you want to think about it easy, it's about for every 5 bottles of spirits that a distillery sells, approximately, they're liable for $13.50 in an extra tax above and beyond everything else that they pay. And so we came into this business knowing that, but it was an impediment to growth. It meant that no matter how good you were doing, it seemed like the tax checks were taking everything at the end of the quarter. And so a few years ago, that was abated down to $2.70 per proof gallon, which is a huge reduction, and has allowed it's no coincidence that during those 2 years, distilleries have thrived and the industry has grown, and distilleries like mine that were getting by are now doing fantastic and hiring people and buying more equipment. And so we're really hoping that that we get the continued support of Congress and our senators to make this permanent, give craft distillers a little bit of security in being able to plan for the future. Because if that tax, hike returns, because this was just a short provision, then you're going to see a lot of belts tightening around the industry, and I think that would be bad. Because what happened is nobody lowered their prices. What they did was they doubled down on investment and spent the money where it would make the most impact. And so I think we're seeing so much growth in employment from craft beverage, especially craft distilleries, and then all the ancillary industries that benefit from us, the farmers that are selling their grain locally, and the malt houses and barrel houses that are opening up to also meet the demand of this new industry. So that's my little rant. If you're so inclined, Spirits United, which is a division of DISCUS, which is the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, has excellent ways for you to easily advocate. It means typing in spiritsunited.com, putting in your zip code, it'll auto-populate your representative, and all you have to do is hit send and let them know how much you care about craft spirits and how you want to see this industry thrive. Because it's not just about me. It's not just about LYON Rum. It's about an entire industry that is really here because people want it, right? I mean, you want choice, you want diversity in what you're able to drink and what's on your shelves. And so that's really important to us. So still a lot of legislative stuff to do, but it's never been a better time to be a producer or to be a drinker, quite frankly. We've got a lot of options.
And there was a lot of work over the last year to get an extension on some of this federal excise tax relief. And I know that all of these relief measures are temporary. None of this is permanent and long-standing. So what Jamie's talking about now is a permanent change to how federal excise taxes are levied to manufacturers of alcoholic beverages across all of the alcohol manufacturing industries. And it's huge for local distilleries, local breweries, local wineries. They're able to take this money and reinvest right there in the community, whether that's through hiring, like Jamie pointed out, or procurement of raw materials at a higher price because they're able to go to a local manufacturer or a local grower. This is really great stuff that the industry is trying to do. So if you have a minute to support that effort, please take that and share your thoughts. It's all positive stuff. Other than that, I think we've had a wonderful chat. Do you have anything else to share with people?
Oh, sorry, I think you cut out there for a minute. Did you ask me something?
Sorry, it's a little noisy with the background music. I was asking if you had anything else you wanted to cover. I think we've done a pretty good.
No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. We're just really happy to be part of the Maryland distilling community. my fellow distillers across the state are doing wonderful things. And I think we've never seen so much, camaraderie as we did in the last couple of months. People really stepping up and working together, trying to meet the needs for hand sanitizer, and also showing, as stressful as this time is and as crazy as it was for all the distilleries to switch over to making hand sanitizer for a few months, it really gave everyone an opportunity to see that we are not just, little booze factories, which we are, belovedly and admittedly, but that we are really community-minded organizations and companies that, when asked, could fulfill an incredibly vital role. And I'm very proud of that fact, and I'm proud for all of us. And I think for our industry, it was some much needed light on the fact that we all really care about the communities we're in, because I think there's still a bit of a stigma to people who don't drink spirits, who cares about the little craft distilleries, that's not an important segment of our economy. And I think it proved more than ever, and in a very unique way, that we are, and that we were all willing to step up and do what was needed, and that we had the unique ability to do that. And so I think that manufacturing on all levels should be celebrated, and we're very proud to have brought, spirits manufacturing back to St. Michael's. And I think that you're seeing that in all these little towns across Maryland and big cities. And so I think that, I will always raise my glass to people who make things, and to those people who support that. So thank you. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everyone that's watching and drinking Maryland spirits. And that's all.
Well, thank you, Jamie, for taking the time to join me this afternoon. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. I appreciate you taking the time to join us on a Thursday and learn more about Maryland spirits. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Please visit LYON Distilling's social media pages. Check out their website. Order things from their store. Support them as much as you can, whether at your local retailer or via online purchases. And check out marylandspirits.org for any questions that you have about the Maryland distilling industry. And have a safe and wonderful rest of your week. See ya.